Hi, I'm Carlin Borisenko. In early 2020, I was the knitting Democrat who accidentally went viral on the internet for going to a Trump rally and then left the party. I became the conservative darling, was on all the shows, traveled around the country, and then realized that conservatives were no better than Democrats. If there's one thing that I've learned, it's that both political tribes are two sides of the same coin. But it wasn't all bad. On my journey, I became obsessed with understanding the woke ideology and the culture war. I broke the story of the city of Seattle doing segregated training with its employees.
How bad has this stuff become? The city of Seattle has now put out, I'm not kidding you, this is according to Dr. Carolyn Borisenko, who's an organizational psychologist. The city of Seattle asked its white employees to voluntarily spend a day off in a training about their internalized racial superiority.
I broke the story that led to the first ever federal lawsuit against critical race theory in the schools. I broke the Coke Be Less White story, one of the biggest anti-woke stories of all time. It got over 30 million views. Coca-Cola's corporate headquarters even had to change their outgoing voicemail.
Throughout the past few days, you may have seen inaccurate reporting on the content of our recently launched diversity, equity, and inclusion training program.
I exposed the schools in Burlington, Vermont for grooming middle school children live on the internet. They called me an unwoke cult leader for that. And the Vermont Human Rights Commission slandered me publicly as being a hate channel. I even got called a hero in Breitbart for exposing that the Washington Post was writing a hit piece on Christopher Rufo. I have broken story after story after story about what's going on in the public schools, from Cambridge, Massachusetts, to autistic sex education, to the Department of Education in Michigan, literally training teachers all over the state how to groom children. I wrote a book called Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against the woke insanity in your life. I host a podcast all about fighting back, and I'm downloading all of my knowledge to you on my Substack, carlin.substack.com. The world is a crazy place. We are literally surrounded by cults on all sides. On this show, we're going to do a deep dive into all aspects of the culture war, and I will show you the dark, dystopian underbellies on both sides. Here are the commitments I'll make to you. I will always tell you the truth. I will always bring you receipts. And if you stick with me, I promise you will see the world differently. Welcome to the cult. Please mount that like button for me and subscribe if you feel so inclined. Well, good evening, everyone. I just got a rather scary message when I tried to turn on my video saying it wasn't working, and then it did work, so surprise. Welcome to a special, I guess, late edition of The Cult. And I do apologize for missing today's 5 p.m. stream and going live a little bit later. But to be honest, there was some breaking news, and I wanted to figure out what the F is going on before I speak publicly about it. Because unlike most of the people doing journalism and commentary in this space, I actually do try to behave like a relatively, responsible human being. And essentially, when news broke based on Project Veritas's Twitter account, here, I'll get the tweet up here, saying that the CEO of Project Veritas, Hannah Giles, had fired everyone on the staff. I saw this happen in real time. And so I basically saw this tweet when it went up, and it said, SOS, Hannah Giles just fired us all. And I was like, what's going on? And so of course, I did a lot of commentary on the whole James O'Keefe Project Veritas situation when James O'Keefe was forced out, which he wasn't really forced out. He egregiously threw the organization under the bus and then left. And then when Project Veritas sued James O'Keefe, I did commentary on that, and we'll talk a little bit about that tonight. But essentially, too long didn't read. James O'Keefe is a narcissist. And I'm not just throwing it out as an insult. James O'Keefe, I am 100% positive, has narcissistic personality disorder. Like the real he is the real deal narcissist. And essentially what happened, and there are so many people who have gotten this wrong. Essentially what happened is James O'Keefe, when he was at Project Veritas, egregiously wasted the organization's resources and donor money on things that had nothing to do with the work the organization was doing, were just personal extravagances for James O'Keefe, like staying in suites at hotels that were like uber expensive, like, private planes, like the black cars people talk so much about, but the black cars were actually probably like the smallest like of the worries. James O'Keefe terrorized the staff at Project Veritas, terrorized them to the point where they were afraid to speak to each other in the office. The laundry list of things that James did is just astronomical, and I've done streams on them before, and I'm not going to do it again. So, but essentially what you need to know for this, and because it does have relevance to what's going on right now, is that when James was quote unquote forced out, which he wasn't really forced out, what James did was, so essentially what happened is James had been spending all of this donor money on things that were not related to the business costs of the organization, or like the business of the organization at all. And when he did that, James put the organization's 501c3 status in jeopardy, because the thing of it is that 501c3s have oversight by the government because of the nonprofit status, right? And Project Veritas is not just like any 501c3. They're a 501c3 that was directly going after the government. And so they actually have a much bigger microscope on them than most people do, than most nonprofits do. Because if Project Veritas steps out of line at all, if they have a hair out of place at all, that means the government can come down on them, take their 501c3 status away, which means that they like the consequences of that are severe with any organization. And so James's financial malfeasance within the organization was so bad, was so egregious, that he actually did put the organization in jeopardy of losing their 501c3 status. When the organization figured it out, and we're talking about this is back in February. When the organization figured it out, they started an investigation, and they hired an outside investigative company to look into James's spending. And the intent from Project Veritas at that time was that they wanted James to stay. They didn't want James to leave. They wanted James to stay. They wanted James to be a part of the organization, but they had to correct the massive financial malfeasance that James had conducted, and they were bringing in outside auditors to do that so that they could rectify the situation. All right. Well, James O'Keefe didn't like that. And because James O'Keefe is a narcissist, Project Veritas took him out of control when they started this audit and investigation into his expenses. Okay. Because James O'Keefe is a narcissist, he cannot be taken out of control without retaliating against the people who took him out of control. And so James started spreading smear campaigns about Project Veritas all over conservative media, and broke his employment agreement with Project Veritas when he started his current organization, which, by the way, like, if you think that the reporting that organization is doing is all that impressive, like, I'm sorry, like, that's ridiculous. It's really not, but that's another story for another day. James started his new organization while he was still employed by Project Veritas, was still a member of I'm pretty sure he was still a member of the board. I would have to go back and recollect the timeline, which I haven't done today. I'm doing this off the top of my head, but I have many other videos on the topic that will be more accurate because it was more fresh in my memory when I did it. But he was definitely still employed by Project Veritas, and I'm pretty sure he was still a member of the board. Okay. You cannot start a competing organization when you still have fiduciary responsibility to the previous organization. All right? It's just it's not legal. You're not supposed to do this. So, when James did that, James was never fired by Project Veritas. He never quit from Project Veritas until like April or May of this year, which was long after James had already started his competing organization and had already gone on a conservative media tour smear campaign, lying up and down about what Project Veritas was doing. Now, how does that relate to this? Let me back up. When I did those videos basically talking about what was going on at Project Veritas, I did my analysis of what was going on with James based purely on his public statements. And apparently I was really dead on about what happened based purely on public information. Now, when I got so much right based purely on public information, like every single employee at Project Veritas reached out to me. Okay, maybe not every single one, but a lot of them. And I'm talking people at all different levels within the organization. And I'm telling you this because I was able to confirm every single thing that I said in all of those streams that I did months ago based on talking with employees of Project Veritas. I become friends with some of those people. Like these are good people that are doing really good work and are really just interested in doing journalism and exposing things. They're not interested in all this political bullshit. Like, spoiler alert, some of them, like many of them, aren't even conservatives. And I don't say that to bring politics into it that much, because you shouldn't actually need to be a conservative to do journalism, right? Like, you can do journalism from any political persuasion, and a lot of the people there are not activists. They actually do consider themselves to be journalists. And so they go where the information takes them. Anyway, so I talked to a lot of people at Project Veritas and basically found out that, yes, I was correct. James O'Keefe was a massive narcissist. James O'Keefe did commit massive financial malfeasance. I guess I'd have to say, like, allegedly, but like he did. According to the people I talked to, he did. And James O'Keefe was still employed by Project Veritas because Project Veritas wanted him to stay and they wanted to work out all the bullshit. But James didn't like that they had taken him out of control. So James went on a conservative media smear campaign, lying about what happened at Project Veritas and painting a certain narrative about what happened. When that happened, Project Veritas lost donors. Now, when I was talking to people several months ago at Project Veritas, they thought this was going to be okay. The general consensus that I had was that they were doing okay. Yeah, they had lost some donors, but they were doing okay. And like, I can't emphasize this enough. The people at Project Veritas were really just trying to keep their heads down and to keep working, as all of conservative media was coming down on them, as the actual journalists that were doing the journalism were getting shit on Twitter all the time. They were just trying to keep their heads down and keep working. I just want to do a couple super chats real quick. Naruto says the mistake Brian and Ed are making is that they want to be Switzerland. There is no neutral ground with the woke. You either choose a side now or a side will be chosen for you. Guys, this is in reference to yesterday's stream where we watched the struggle session that Brian Krasenstein underwent at the hands of a BLM activist, an albino black BLM activist who just like really threw him under the bus. If you missed that stream, I definitely recommend you watch it. And shout out to Brian, who actually left a comment on the stream. No, you shouldn't have never gone in that room. Never take the bait from a woke leftist. And then Rottweiler says, but it was all spoiled brats complaining. Well, I would say the spoiled brats complaining about Project Veritas were on Twitter. Yeah, but they weren't the employees of Project Veritas. Anyway. So it looked like things were actually going to be okay. Maybe they tighten their belt for a little while, maybe like they have to restructure things, whatever, but like the general consensus from people that I had talked to at that time was that they were just trying to focus on the work and they really thought things were going to be okay. Fast forward. So Hannah Giles gets hired as the new CEO of Project Veritas. Hannah worked with James O'Keefe on the original Acorn investigation that like launched James O'Keefe into conservative stardom. But the thing of it is Hannah was actually the one who came up with that entire investigation, who planned that entire investigation, who basically did all the work. And then what had happened is James O'Keefe came into that and took all of the credit for it. Hannah planned the entire Acorn investigation and then hired James O'Keefe to come in and help her to play a role because there we go. Because Hannah needed like a male actor, and James O'Keefe was a theater kid. James O'Keefe was an actor. We see this all the time. Some of the money that James O'Keefe has wasted is literally spending Project Veritas money on doing a musical that he wanted to star in. Like, if you guys can't see that he's wasting money, I just don't know what to say. Anyway, so back in the day when James O'Keefe basically became famous, it was because of Hannah Giles that he became famous. And so people were actually pretty excited, I think, when Hannah was brought on as the new CEO of Project Veritas, because in their minds, Hannah was the actual real journalist. And I can't emphasize this enough, guys. James O'Keefe was not involved with the journalism at Project Veritas. For everyone saying that James O'Keefe is the only one who can do journalism, like James, like no, 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 no. James O'Keefe was not involved with the journalism at Project Veritas. That's why when you see James's new organization now, James is basically sending out cameras to like average people and then having average people go do the journalism for him and send him back the footage. And then James gets to decide what footage he wants to use and what he wants to pay for and all this stuff. And that's because James was not involved with the journalism at Project Veritas. I cannot emphasize that enough. For everyone that thinks that James is the great hope of journalism, the guy never actually did journalism. Other people always did it for him. And then he took the credit for it by being the face of the organization. All right. So Hannah gets hired as the new CEO of Project Veritas. People are just trying to keep their heads down, trying to do what they're doing. And apparently, the hit to the fundraising was worse than what was originally thought. And what I've heard, and I basically, one of the reasons I'm going live later today is I basically spent the last several hours talking to a dozen people from Project Veritas to greater or lesser degrees. Some of them do still have jobs at Project Veritas. Most of them do not still have jobs at Project Veritas. All right. So I really did try to get a variety of perspective on what the hell happened, because there are some people that I'm going to try to do my very best to give a balanced account here, but I want people to be aware that, you know, the people that I talk to that still have jobs at Project Veritas have a little bit of a different perspective than the people who just got fired from Project Veritas. And there have been a metric ton of people who have just gotten fired. The reason is, now, I want to just take a step back and say this one thing before I get into what's actually going on. Anytime a new CEO comes into an organization, and this is true universally, anytime a new CEO comes into an organization, there is almost always a round of layoffs, and there is almost always a restructuring. And those layoffs and that restructuring generally takes place within 6 months of the new CEO coming into the organization. And that makes sense, right? A new leader comes in. They are now in charge of leading the organization. They want to do it their way. That may include continuing some things that were already being done. That may include doing some things a different way. And so you will find this anytime a new CEO comes in, there is almost always a restructuring and almost always a round of layoffs. And it's sad and no one likes to see it, but it's just the way it goes. So I wasn't actually surprised to hear that there was a round of layoffs at Project Veritas. I think what I am surprised and quite frankly very sad about is that I don't think that this is just a simple restructuring. It does actually sound like Hannah may not be stepping up into the role in the way that many people hoped that she would. And it does sound like James O'Keefe's smear campaign did more to financially hurt the company than was originally told to me. And so, what was articulated to me today was that if they did not do this round of layoffs, that they didn't have the money to make payroll because Hannah had promised when she was hired that she would be able to bring in a lot of new donors. And apparently, those new donors never really materialized. That's just what was said to me. I don't know how true that is. I'm articulating what was said to me by like a source, okay? So, today, this tweet gets sent out from the Project Veritas account. SOS, Hannah Giles just fired us all. Now, Hannah obviously made some mistakes in this round of layoffs, or I should say, Hannah and the HR director, whoever that HR director is, and I don't know because I haven't talked to them. Hannah and the HR director made some mistakes in this round of layoffs. And by the way, all the employees were not fired today. There have been 3 days this week at Project Veritas where people have been fired. People started getting fired on Monday. More people were fired on Tuesday. And now the latest round is that like a whole bunch of more people got laid off. Like 18 people got fired today. And it seems as though there are at least 25 employees that have been fired by Project Veritas this week. Okay. The mistake that they made is they fired the people running the social media without taking away access to the accounts. So what they essentially did, and like I gotta say, I am completely unimpressed. As an organizational psychologist, I am completely unimpressed with how this firing went down. Because essentially what happened is people who were getting fired got an email to come on to a Zoom meeting. Hannah didn't even bother to go to the Zoom meeting. And instead, when those people got onto the Zoom meeting, they were met with the HR director, who then fired them all via Zoom, but forgot to turn off access to the social media account. So the people in the meeting who are on the social media team, when they got fired via Zoom at the meeting that the CEO didn't bother to go to. And by the way, they were given 0 severance, which is another thing that pisses me off, Hannah. You don't fire people like that with no severance. So when they came to this Zoom meeting to get fired by the HR director at the meeting that the CEO didn't bother to show up to, where they got zero severance, I think the people running the social media were a little bit pissed off. And I think that many of us can understand why the people running the social media may have been pissed off by that development. And they tweeted this out from the Twitter account, and they also posted it in their Telegram group. And it took them longer to take it down in the Telegram group than it did on the Twitter account. They left it up in the Telegram group for quite some time. So when this happened, tweeting this out to like 1 million followers, whatever, I started contacting like my friends and like my sources inside Project Veritas to say what actually happened, what's going on. And again, like I really want to just know what the truth is. I'm not taking a side. I don't really care. I think the whole thing is incredibly sad. There are really talented people and really good people that work at Project Veritas that literally just want to do journalism and be left the F alone. And it's like they have gone through this year where they're personally getting dragged all over the internet because of James O'Keefe's malfeasance. And now because of this really like awful thing, like it is traumatic, guys, when you work at an organization and all of your friends get fired and you like even if you still have a job, even if you survive, it is a traumatic thing. And I think like all the people that are dunking on Project Veritas right now, like it's disgusting to me to watch the conservative influencers like revel in this, be like, James was right, James was right, James was right. Because and you're gonna see this, this is all James O'Keefe's fault in the first place. And even the people that got fired from Project Veritas blame James O'Keefe. Now, a lot of them are not happy with Hannah either, and they're not happy with Hannah for several reasons, which I'm going to explain. But they blame primarily James O'Keefe for what happened because James O'Keefe is the person that tanked the entire organization because he didn't want to rectify his gross and egregious financial malfeasance. And I'm going to show you that. The people that have gotten fired from Project Veritas, like specifically say that it was James O'Keefe and Hannah Giles who brought them down. It was not their fault. And to watch conservative influencers dunking on the people who just lost their jobs, that's gross. I'm sorry. That's gross. The people who lost their jobs at Project Veritas are journalists, are communications people, are videographers, are normal people just like you who worked at Project Veritas because they believed in exposing corruption and doing good journalism and showing people what was going on in the world. These people didn't do anything wrong. These people are very good at what they do. And now, like conservative influencers are dunking on all of them, losing their jobs when they were not the ones that caused this problem in the first place. James O'Keefe was the one who caused this problem in the first place. Sarah, that's exactly right. James basically said if he can't be CEO, he would burn it all to the ground. That's exactly right. And so I just want everyone to think before we get into the nitty gritty of what people have been saying, how would you feel if you were going to work at an organization, you were trying to keep your head down and do good work, but your boss's boss's boss went on a media tour smearing the entire organization, and that ended up costing you your job, a job that you were very passionate about. And in response to that, conservative influencers all over Twitter are celebrating the fact that you just lost your job through no fault of your own because they are simping for your former narcissistic CEO. How would people feel if that happened to you? If I was them, if I worked at Project Veritas, I would be pretty pissed off. I would be pretty pissed, and I would never, ever, 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 ever want to help these people again because they just show that they don't appreciate the help when you give it to them. So, the Post Millennial has an article about this. Now, I want to say I have talked to multiple sources from Project Veritas, some who are still there, some are who not still there. And I basically asked them, how accurate is this article? Because to be honest, when the Post Millennial reported on this last time, they got a lot of shit wrong. And they didn't do a good job of correcting what they got wrong. And so I am inherently suspicious of anything that comes out of the Post Millennial, but particularly about this James O'Keefe situation. Scott, I promise you, you do not know more about this than me. I promise you. And if you do, Scott, then you can slide into my DMs on Twitter and you can prove that because I don't think you do know more about this than I do. So I don't trust the Post Millennial, mostly because Jack Posobiec and Libby, well, not so much Libby, I don't think, but Jack Posobiec is a James O'Keefe simp, and this article is written in a way that's like kissing James O'Keefe's ass. However, there are details in this article that I think they've gotten correctly, but the general inflammatory nature of it leads me to believe that it might not be an accurate rendition. Well, you know who I don't trust? Anonymous assholes on the internet. So if you have sources, bro, then you can bring them right now. But I would bet that you're more interested in sucking James O'Keefe's cock than you are in actually knowing what the truth is. And that's a you problem. That's not a me problem. So, I mean, you can go and try if you want. Hey, guys, fun fact, just as an aside, do you know what James O'Keefe's nickname is at Project Veritas? I know. Does anyone, for all the James O'Keefe simps that are watching right now, do you know what James O'Keefe's nickname is at Project Veritas? Any takers? Any takers? For those people saying in the chat that you know more about this than I do, what is James O'Keefe's nickname from Project Veritas? It has to do with his, I'll give you a hint. It has to do with his love of the ladies. For those of you who are saying you know more about this than I do, you would absolutely know what James O'Keefe's nickname is at Project Veritas if you did in fact know more than I do. So what is it? I'll tell you all. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, look, all those people in the chat saying that they know more about me than I do in this situation don't have any sort of answer. No, James O'Keefe's nickname at Project Veritas, you guys ready for it? James O'Keefe Panty Thief. I'll let you ruminate on that one. So, we're going to read this article, and I'm going to point out what I know in this article and what I think is not exactly accurate in this article. And then we're going to look at some tweets from some people from Project Veritas. And we're going to see what they're saying on Twitter. So this is from the Post Millennial, and it says, chaos at Project Veritas. Almost all employees have been laid off, according to a source. And then we've got, that's Hannah. As soon as it was posted on Twitter and Telegram, it was gone, but reports are coming in from Project Veritas staff that they've all been fired. False. There are still people employed at Project Veritas. They have not all been fired. That is not correct. A source told the Post Millennial that the CEO tonight so the Post Millennial is doing such a great job of editing that this sentence doesn't even make sense, but I do know what they're talking about. One of the people who is out at Project Veritas, and this is according to Gavin. Gavin, do you guys remember the Pfizer video? Do you guys remember the Pfizer video where they cornered the Pfizer guy in the pizza parlor, and the Pfizer guy took the iPad and he smashed the iPad, and then the cameraman for Project Veritas pushed the Pfizer guy to the ground, and he was wearing a red jacket? Do you guys remember that? So Gavin was the camera guy. Gavin, and he's one of the people that lost his job, sadly. But that's who that is. And so he posted this on Twitter earlier. This is a screenshot from Tom O'Hara, who was the CFO of Project Veritas. But apparently Tom watched all of the people there get fired, and he decided to resign as a result of it. So he sent out this email earlier. He said, "I tried and failed. I apologize to you all. I have resigned as CFO effective immediately. And the new CFO is George Skakel." And that's what the post millennial was talking about in that. Nope, this is completely not true. This is completely untrue. This is part of James O'Keefe's smear campaign, and you should not trust anyone, no conservative influencers who are saying this, because it is completely and totally false. Project Veritas was not bought and paid for by Pfizer. James O'Keefe is a narcissist who was being investigated for massive financial malfeasance that almost cost the organization their nonprofit status. And as a result of that, because James did not want to rectify the massive financial malfeasance, James spread the smear campaign all over conservative media that Project Veritas was bought and paid for by Pfizer, because why else would they get rid of him? Why else? He never does anything wrong except egregiously spend donor money on things for himself. $1 million effing dollars wasted on James O'Keefe's extravagances. So anyone who says this doesn't know what they're talking about, guys. That's just reality. In fact, Project Veritas kept going after Pfizer after James left. No one ever likes to account for that. Project Veritas still kept going after Pfizer after James left. Why would they do that if they were bought and paid for by Pfizer? Makes no sense. So, yes, the source, the CFO also did resign and was replaced with George Skakel tonight. We know that because they tweeted it. Jack Posobiec, who has a bone to pick with Project Veritas because he's friends with James O'Keefe. So Jack Posobiec is not a reliable source in this instance, said, "I'm told almost all of Project Veritas was just laid off, and this is legit. All of production, all of field ops, all of comms, all of legal, only remaining are office admin, HR person, a couple development people, and IT. That is not accurate. That is not accurate. There were a lot of people who were fired, but it is not accurate to say that the only people remaining at Project Veritas are office admin, HR people, development people, and IT. That's not accurate." Anyway, a post from Project Veritas read, "SOS, Hannah Giles just fired us all." And then it was gone. Only 18 people are left on staff. I don't know if that number is accurate or not, because it seems the people that I'm talking to are still trying to figure out who exactly got fired and who did not get fired. So basically, a lot of Project Veritas is like remote. So they're not all in New York. Like a lot of them, they're spread out all over the country. And so what's going on right now, and again, remember, there's been like 3 days worth of firings at Project Veritas, is they're all calling each other and trying to figure out like who still works here and who still doesn't work here. So I don't know that that number is accurate. I also don't know that it's far off. Okay. So it wouldn't be surprising to me if Project Veritas had very few people on staff right now. I find it hard to believe it's going to be lower than that. I do think it might be a little higher than that, but I'm not sure. Okay. Giles, who became notorious for starring in the Acorn video with founder and former CEO James O'Keefe, took over for O'Keefe after he was summarily pushed out of the board, pushed out by the board of directors. James O'Keefe was not pushed out by the board of directors. This whole sentence right here, or this part of the sentence, is completely false. That did not happen. Again, for people who have just joined, what happened is that James was being investigated for massive financial malfeasance that put the company's nonprofit status in jeopardy. And James, because he didn't want to be investigated, decided to start his own company while he was still employed by Project Veritas and still a member of the board, still had fiduciary responsibility of the company, decided to start his own company, and then came in on a day, by the way. Do you guys remember that 45-minute speech that James gave to the people in the office when he left? Let me tell you what actually happened. The Project Veritas offices were closed the day that James gave that 45-minute speech. What happened is James invited people to come into the office because he knew that no one else was going to be there. He invited his favorite employees that he wanted to take with him and go to his new organization into the office to hear his 45-minute going away speech. And it was only his hand-picked kind of favorites that he thought he could poach from Project Veritas and take with him, because no one else was in the office that day because the offices were closed. But the fact that James O'Keefe still had his key card and it was still working is proof that he was not fired. He still had access to the office, and he invited people into the office that he liked, that he wanted to poach from the company, to be his audience for his big 45-minute going away speech that he filmed so he could release it to Tim Pool and put it on the internet. Even though he said, this is just for us, this is just for internal. But for some reason, he had a professional videographer there, and Tim Pool wound up with the full speech right after it happened. I'm sure it was just a coincidence. James O'Keefe was still fully employed by Project Veritas when that happened. James O'Keefe was still being paid by Project Veritas when this happened. People are confused by this. They think that James was not being paid, and they're like, well, they weren't paying him, so of course he was fired. He was still being paid by Project Veritas when that happened. His full salary when that happened. Okay? He was not pushed out. He left. And he left in a manner that egregiously broke his employment agreement with the company, and then used it to go on a massive smear campaign lying about the company all over conservative media. Anyway, you can go back and watch my previous videos from that time period if you have more questions about that, because I did videos where I was breaking down the timeline. I broke down the whole lawsuit. We watched it all, so you can find it all on the channel. So Hannah came in and took over as CEO only to destroy the company entirely. Well, so I don't know that I would say that Hannah came in and became CEO to destroy the company, but it is certainly the perception, especially among the people who just got fired, that Hannah did not really step into the role of CEO in the way that many would have hoped that she would. Apparently, Hannah wasn't really acting as a leader. Apparently, and this is their perception, I'm articulating their perception. They did not believe that Hannah was a real leader. They didn't take her seriously. And most importantly, Hannah did not bring in the money that people thought she would in terms of fundraising. We have this sentence here. She came to all hands in April with her fat sidekick, Ben Wetmore, and all they did for 3 days was talk shit about James and relitigate all the terrible things he did to her slash them 10 to 12 years ago. I knew right then her entire agenda was revenge. Okay. I have heard that is not an accurate account of what happened. Now, I think it's fair to say that Hannah absolutely did talk about her experience with James with the staff. And I know that because I heard about Hannah talking about her experience with James with the staff. Okay. But what I have heard is that it is not fair and accurate to say that Hannah came to the all staff meeting or all hands meeting, whatever, and spent 3 days talking shit about James. In fact, I've kind of heard the opposite. I have heard that the line that was just repeated over and over and over again at Project Veritas was James isn't here anymore. Keep your head down, keep working. So I don't believe this framing that she spent 3 days relitigating everything and just talking shit about him. Maybe like, you can see it happen kind of over drinks. You're out at a bar. Oh yeah, he fucked me over. He fucked me over too. Let's tell the story. Because listen, guys, like everyone at Project Veritas that I've talked to has a story about how James O'Keefe fucked them over. Like truly. James O'Keefe was a fucking terror to these people. Like maybe not every single person I've talked to, but like the vast majority of people that I've spoken to from Project Veritas, and again, we're talking like a good at least dozen people, probably like actually way more than a dozen people, maybe even getting closer to 2 dozen. The vast majority of the people that I've spoken to that worked for James at Project Veritas have stories about how James O'Keefe fucked them over. And so you can kind of envision a scenario, right, where they're at an all hands meeting. They're all talking. James has just fucked them over massively. And so you start kind of sharing stories. Oh, how did James fuck you over? Oh, he did this to me. He did this to me. He did this to me. You can kind of envision that happening, right? When you're in a social situation where like it's just like you're venting and you're commiserating about this jackass that has caused you a massive headache, right? That's what I think probably happened. But I don't believe this narrative of she spent 3 straight days just bitching and complaining about James. That doesn't make sense to me and it doesn't align with things that I've heard. On-air talent Christian Hartsock and James Lolino were both laid off after Giles told the staff that a restructuring would be underway. I'm actually really upset about like Christian Hartsock and James Lolino are really good at what they do. That's a loss for everyone. I hope everyone understand like you guys have seen them in Project Veritas videos. They do really good work. It is a sad thing that they've been laid off. Well, I'm going to be really honest. I don't trust anything Tim Pool has to say about this because Tim Pool got so much wrong about it the first time. Tim Pool is not interested in the truth of what happened here. Tim Pool is only interested in kissing James O'Keefe's ass. So I don't really care what Tim Pool has to say about this because even though all of the facts were available when this bullshit all started happening, Tim Pool basically got every single thing about the story wrong. And by the way, do you know what one of the first things that most people from Project Veritas say when they start talking to me? Fuck Tim Pool. Every single like actual employee at Project Veritas fucking hates Tim Pool because Tim Pool lied about them so egregiously. They were there. They know what happened. They know what didn't happen. Like it was sickening for these people to watch Tim Pool simp for James O'Keefe and then basically throw all of them under the bus. So I'll take the line that the average Project Veritas employee, either former or current, is going to say, and they're going to say fuck Tim Pool. Anyway, Kaylin Erickson, Jamie Phillips, and Elisa Denham were also fired. Now let's talk about these people. So I want to talk about Christian Hartsock and I want to talk about Elisa real quick. Let's see. Not that one. Not that one. Where is it? That wasn't what I wanted either. Oh no. Oh no, hang on one second. I need to find something because there was something on Christian's Twitter and I maybe just didn't load it. Hang on. I wanted to show this to you guys. Sorry I didn't get it up in time, but let me just find it real quick. I just don't want you guys to see anything that you're not supposed to see, and I have a lot of messages right now that I don't intend anyone to see because reasons. Okay. Hang on. One more second. I got it. Okay. We're back in business. So, I'm just going to show you guys some of their public tweets. No, don't worry, Sin. I'll never show you my porn. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. So I'm going to show you their public tweets. This is Christian Hartsock, and he's responding. And by the way, like, if any Project Veritas employees are watching this, you guys got to be careful about what you're saying in public. I don't want to see you guys get in trouble because a lot of them are fucking tweeting right now because a lot of them are pissed off. And they should be pissed off, and I understand why they're pissed off. I'm just saying, don't say things in public that violate your NDA. So this is Christian Hartsock. He's responding to this woman. Apparently, the new CEO of Project Veritas just fired all of Project Veritas. And then he said, false, she had HR do it for her. And then this guy, who's also at Project Veritas, said, yup, she cowardly hid while she had HR terminate 18 plus people with no severance or anything. Snake. And again, I said this earlier. I actually do agree with this. If you are a CEO and you're firing a significant portion of your staff, you put on your big girl fucking pants and you go to the fucking meeting. I'm sorry. You don't pawn that off on HR. You don't like go run and hide in a corner. Like, you go to the meeting and you face the music. And I find it particularly disagreeable that they were fired without severance. That's gross. I'm sorry. Like, I understand that anytime a new CEO comes into an organization, there's going to be a restructuring. I understand that, like, their challenges with fundraising, given the fact that James O'Keefe engaged in a massive smear campaign against them that impacted them. But one of the things you need to do as CEO is plan for these things. And I'm sorry, if you were going to do a round of layoffs, then what you should have done is to make sure that you have enough in reserve to take care of the people that you are letting go. That's just responsible. It is not responsible for a CEO to come in and fire people who have dedicated themselves to this without giving them any warning and any severance. So I'm not cool with that. I don't like it at all. But this is one of the people that's being talked about in the article. Another one of the people being talked about in the article is Alyssa. And what she was retweeting here was this tweet, essentially, which has since been deleted. But I want to show you this because, like, this is indicative. Not like the people that got fired from Project Veritas blame this on James first and Hannah second. So the people that worked directly under James are well aware that James was not treated badly by Project Veritas. James is not a poor, abused victim in this situation. They all blame, at least the ones that I've talked to, blame James O'Keefe just as much as Hannah. They're not happy with Hannah, but they blame James O'Keefe in this too, okay? So Alyssa says, the two people who started the movement also killed it, James O'Keefe and Hannah Giles. Congratulations. All right. Let's see. What other tweets do I have while I'm here? I have 2 from Gavin. Why the fuck do I have 2 tweets from Gavin? I feel like I was gonna. Oh, Gavin's also tweeting about everyone needs to unfollow Pro. I don't know that that's true, Gavin. What else was I? Can I just say, as a side note, I really just appreciate the entire demeanor of Gavin's tweets. I really do appreciate it. And I know this is like making light of a horrible situation, but I'm sorry. That's funny as shit. He really is. You guys should all go follow Gavin. What else was I going to show you from him anyway? Hang on. So here, look at this. Look at this. So there are people replying to Gavin saying, I unfollowed Project Veritas after you guys fucked over James. And what did he say? What did he say? Well, you should have kept it. I'd watch to see what the account turns into soon. Maybe Wayback Machine can help. Like, they're basically saying, listen, like, they're basically telling people, you guys are part of the reason that we got fired. Like, conservatives are just dunking on dunking on Project Veritas over the James shit because they really think that everyone who was left at Project Veritas really feels the same way that they do, but they didn't. James terrorized them. They didn't feel that. They don't feel the way about them the way that conservatives who are dunking on them on Twitter right now are. Anyway, what else did he put? There's more to the story. Oh, here's one. Here's one. And this is a guy that got fired from Project Veritas on Monday. Hannah, do you want to tell people what's going on inside Project Veritas right now? Will you say why 25 plus people have been chopped in 3 days? Will you tell the truth about the financial status of the organization? I know it. Come out and say it. Transparency 100. So this was an actual Project Veritas employee. He got fired on Monday, and he's saying that 25 plus people have been fired since, like, on Monday. I think Monday, Tuesday, and today were the days that they did the firing. Anyway. So, on-air talent Christian Hartsock and James Lalino were both laid off after Giles told staff that they would be restructuring. Other people were fired too. The terminations were done via a Zoom call with HR, with a few of those in the New York office. Giles did not make an appearance. That's true. The terminations were done via a Zoom call with HR, and no, Hannah Giles did not go, and that was really fucking cowardly. She's a lying sack of shit, a source told the Post Millennial. No one respected her anyway. Well, I will say this. When she was hired, a lot of people were excited. So I don't know. I don't have a good sense of if people were genuinely excited when she was hired and then she just didn't meet expectations, or if that was just a face that they were putting on. I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that my experience in talking to them when she came on board was that everyone seemed pretty excited about it. And it's natural for things to change, and obviously when you're laying people off, you're going to piss a lot of people off. So, who's to say? 5 people were let go on Monday, including the executive news producer, Pam Brown. She was brought in by O'Keefe last year. Some of those who were fired were allegedly released in retaliation from their undercover work. Those who were left are primarily admin people, and about 20 people were fired on Thursday. Again, hang on, I just want to check something real quick. Hang on. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Where did she go? Hang on. Okay, never mind. The production team is gutted, and only a few undercover journalists remain to help with fundraising. I don't think that's, well, There are absolutely still undercover journalists at Project Veritas. I do not know. I don't know if the primary reason for those undercover journalists remaining are to help with fundraising. That is not the impression I have been given, but I'm saving space for the idea that it could be true. But that's not the I don't agree with the framing of this based on the people that I've talked to, but I can also see a reality in which it could be true, which would make me very sad. But generally speaking right now, I'm not responding well to that framing. After the bloodbath, the team chat saw Giles mercilessly roasted. I believe that very, very strongly. And to be honest, it would not surprise me if screenshots came out from those chats. It really, really, really wouldn't. Like, I think there are a lot of pissed off people. I think those people really dedicated themselves to this. And so it wouldn't really surprise me at all if at some point there was screenshots from these chats that came out, but I guess we'll see. Since James quit, a source told the Post Millennial, the donations dried up. The donations never resumed. The board were desperate to bring Hannah on board because they thought it would be cute. But the problem is she's a charlatan and a fraud. Everything she's ever done has been a failure, and she lied to everyone, claiming she had all these donors to bring in. All right. So, a source of the consternation, and I'll show you guys this, and I'm pretty sure I saw this on Gavin's Twitter feed. A source of the consternation seems to be this. This is Jonathan. Jonathan is another Project Veritas employee. Hannah had an organization called the American Phoenix Foundation. And it's unclear to me. I'm going to be honest, I spent about 20 minutes looking into this. I haven't done a lot of work into it yet so far because I just haven't had time. I was trying to figure out what was actually going on. It is unclear to me what the American Phoenix Foundation even does, if I'm honest about it. And so what I suspect is happening is that, hang on, Thunder, you must be new here and you're complaining in my chat, so I will humor you. For not a journalist, his organization has broken a ton of stories and even put people in jail. Has Veritas done without James done it? Yes, Thunder. Yes. Project Veritas without James continued releasing stories that James was not involved in. They even released stories about Pfizer after James left. They have been releasing stories this entire time. They did undercover investigations at gender clinics. They did undercover investigations that exposed stuff that was going on in New York City. They have released story after story after story after story after story after James left. Well, then you should know better than to question when I tell you something because I always bring receipts, bitch. You can go onto Project Veritas's Twitter feed, you can go onto their YouTube channel, you can go onto their website, and you can see for yourself that they have continued to release story after story after story, even when people like you were shitting on them publicly. And by the way, the stories that they released, even when James was there, James had nothing to do with. The biggest stories that you have seen come out of Project Veritas, James O'Keefe had nothing to do with them. In fact, James O'Keefe tried to kill some of the biggest stories that they had because it was just taking too long for them to develop the stories and James got bored. And he didn't want to do it anymore because it was taking too long to do the undercover journalism. And so he just wanted to pull the plug entirely. And those stories became some of the biggest stories that Project Veritas ever broke. The ones that James wanted to kill, but he wasn't allowed to because the staff pushed back on him. Anyway, back to this. Hannah's organization was the American Phoenix Foundation. Apparently, people essentially think that Hannah made this. Here's what I think is happening. I'm not totally clear on this aspect of it, but they think that Hannah lied about how many donors she had to this organization and like her successes with the organization. And so they kind of think that Hannah snowed her way into the role by claiming that she was capable of doing things that she had not done. I don't know if that's truthful. I am articulating the perception that I've heard and that I've gathered by seeing public Twitter posts like this. They don't think that Hannah did a good job with that organization. There's also something to do with this other guy that I haven't looked into at all because I haven't had time. That they basically think that they were grifting or something, and so they weren't able to like bring the donor dollars with them. Is the point that I'm making? She came along in April, and to my knowledge, she never brought in a penny. A letter from Project Veritas attorneys was sent to the staff that read, on August 9th, 2023, I was informed by the Project Veritas Board of Directors on August 8th, 2023, to no longer indemnify Spencer Meads or Eric Cochran. This is some bullshit. This is another thing that this is bullshit right here. Okay, so my understanding is that Spencer and Eric were journalists essentially that got arrested for doing journalism. Project Veritas was paying the legal fees for the journalists who got arrested doing journalism on their behalf, which PS is just like the right thing to do. I had a meeting with George Skakel. George is now the current CFO of Project Veritas after the now former one resigned 4 hours ago. Hannah Giles and John Sullivan later that afternoon and expressed my concerns. I was told the main reason for the decision was to save money, which seemed disingenuous considering the outstanding balances of Spencer attorneys and Eric's attorney, which combined totaled roughly $45,000, according to Tom O'Hara. Tom O'Hara is the CFO that just resigned today after watching everyone get fired. So essentially what this is saying is the attorney cost for Spencer and Eric were only $45,000, which which might sound like a lot of money, but in the land of Project Veritas, that really shouldn't have been that much money. That's essentially like a tax write-off. Not that they're nonprofits, so they don't pay taxes, but like $45,000 in the land that they're playing in is not a lot of money. So why are you saying that you're no longer going to pay the legal fees for the journalists that got arrested doing journalism on your behalf? That's a little fishy. And they're saying we don't have the money to do it. Well, if you don't have the money to pay $45,000 in legal fees, something else is going on. To compromise on the values and ethics held by the employees of its organization is simply wrong. It sets a dangerous precedent that at any given moment, Project Veritas can withhold providing legal protection to current journalists operating legally in the field. So this is important because like I've talked to a bunch of their journalists and like one of the things that definitely came through, and this is just like chit chat. It's just like I was curious about what they did. And so we talked about it, like whatever. I'm not going to reveal anything that they told me that's confidential or anything. But like one of the things that definitely came through is that they were grateful that Project Veritas provided them with legal protection and legal guidance for what they were doing, because what they're doing, it's very easy to like essentially get in trouble, get in legal trouble. And so it's helpful for them to have like the legal guidance and the legal protection for what they're doing, and that's something that they really valued at Project Veritas. So the minute that you take away the legal protection, you're kind of sending a really bad message to the journalists working for you that if you end up getting in trouble in the course of doing your job with us, we are not going to protect you. We're not going to provide you with these resources. We're not going to make sure that you're legally covered or any of that. And so this really does set a really, 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 really bad precedent. After my concerns, I was told that I should postpone contacting their attorneys while the board reconsiders their decision. This afternoon at 2:38 p.m., I received a text from Hannah stating, "Go ahead and tell Eddie the above and alert Spencer and Eric's attorneys about the decision the board made the other night. It currently stands as is." So essentially what happened is that the so there was some sort of decision made by the Project Veritas board of directors that they were going to withhold, they were no longer going to fund the legal support for these two journalists that got in trouble when they were doing journalism for Project Veritas. And then the attorney basically, who was this person again? Hang on. The Project Veritas attorney basically said to the Project Veritas board, "I really think you guys should reconsider because this is a dumb decision for reason X, Y, B, and Z." And the board was like, "Nah, withholding legal aid for our journalists is just a great idea that sends exactly the right message that we want to send." It was a really shitty call. This email is in a response to the directive I was given. Not only is it unethical to no longer protect journalists that have gone into the field and risked their livelihoods to and for the betterment of our country, I believe ceasing to do so will open Project Veritas to legal liability. 10 days ago, on July 31st, 2023, we published the Ashley Biden diary story against the wishes of Eric Cochran and others, with a main goal of raising money for the legal defense of our journalists. In the piece, Hannah states, "We will continue to provide representation to all of them." All of them means Spencer Meads, Eric Cochran, and James O'Keefe, because all of them got arrested in relation to the Ashley Biden diary story. And I remember this because I saw this video when it came out. So essentially what happened is like a couple, what was it? Like it was a couple of weeks ago, it wasn't even that long ago. Project Veritas released a video basically showing that that hang on. Stanley says, regarding James O'Keefe, "Just so you know, I learned today that Bob Kane, 80 years ago, who created Batman, was actually a grifter and a fraud and never gave credit to the real creators and artists, and that sucks." It does suck when that happens, Stanley, doesn't it? It does suck. I agree with you. Thank you for sharing that story. Anyway, so a couple weeks ago, Project Veritas releases this video basically trying to authenticate that they actually did have Ashley Biden's diary. And it was a fundraising ask. It was. It was a fundraising ask to raise legal fees in order to be able to protect the people who got the story. Well, because of James O'Keefe's conservative goddamn smear campaign, conservatives are now like, "Fuck Project Veritas, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you." And they're basically like not donating anymore because all of their conservative influencers have lied to them about what's happened so they can simp for James O'Keefe. And that basically has resulted in them not being able to raise the money for legal fees to protect the journalists who actually got Ashley Biden's diary. This, conservatives, is why you don't follow the shiniest object at all times, because it does actually have real world consequences. Anyway. So then they pulled the legal fees, which the attorney is basically telling Project Veritas, "This is like really unethical what you're doing." And I agree that it's unethical, But I also, quite frankly, blame the donors who left all these people out to dry. Is there anything that conservative influencers are doing correctly at this point? No. Not that I can see, to be honest with you. Not you, Beth. Beth, we're going to make you a libertarian before this is all over. I promise you, Beth. The libertarians are calling. Anyway, there are serious issues with honesty and telling the public we are providing representation for Spencer and Eric, and then mere days later voting to cease that representation. There may also be fraud given Project Veritas solicited funds based upon that claim, which is now no longer true. In that vein, with respect to all involved, I must do and hereby decline to participate in this decision or the execution of it. So essentially, Project Veritas's lawyer is telling the board of directors, I'm not doing this because you went out to the public and told them you were providing this legal representation, and it is really unethical of you assholes to now pull the legal representation, not only for the people involved, but for the message you're sending to all other journalists, and I'm not doing it, F off. That's a much more uncouth way of saying what that lawyer just told them. And that's really all the story exists as of right now. And I think we've looked at all the tweets that I have pulled up. Let's see if Jangles is tweeting anymore. And guys, they're on Twitter. Project Veritas employees are on Twitter, so you can go and find them, or now former Project Veritas employees, I guess. You can go and find them and see what they're tweeting. Let's see, is Jonathan tweeting anymore? We'll do real-time updates with Project Veritas employees. And by the way, again, every single Project Veritas employee you still see tweeting is also saying, you guys don't know what the fuck happened with James. You don't know what happened with James. You don't know what happened with James, because they all hate James. Every single one of them. But basically what I'm hearing, see, do you regret effing over James? Oh, there's a whole lot more to say on that story. Let's see. Anyway, so essentially, here's what I think. I've never spoken to Hannah. I don't know about Hannah's leadership skills. I don't know either way. What I will say is that Hannah was given an almost impossible task, given the smear campaign, the highly effective smear campaign that James O'Keefe ran on Project Veritas. And I don't know how many seasoned CEOs could come into that role and turn around everything that had happened leading up to that point. Because I'm going to be honest, guys, I don't think Project Veritas handled the entire year perfectly. I really don't. I understand that it was a difficult situation from the beginning, right? And I think mistakes were made. None of those mistakes were made by the employees of Project Veritas, but they were made by the leadership of Project Veritas. And I blame, I guess, the board, if anything. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that Hannah Giles came into a really tough situation for anyone. Did she exaggerate her experience? I don't know. Did she exaggerate her access to donors? I don't know. I don't know the current state of fundraising at Project Veritas. Well, why did James grossly misspend donor dollars? Why did James waste millions of dollars of the organization's money? Why did James put the organization's non-profit status in jeopardy? Why didn't James allow the investigation to play out which is what Project Veritas was doing to rectify the situation? You're actually saying, right, that you wanted every single employee at Project Veritas to quit, except for like 2 people. There were only like 2 people at Project Veritas that went with James. Because they all hated him. Because he terrorized them. And yet he wasn't doing any of the journalism. He wasn't doing any journalism. You guys, man, you know what? People like you don't deserve people working for you. You really don't. You don't deserve people like the journalists at Project Veritas. You don't deserve people doing the work required to bring you the stories that you demand for your entertainment. None of you fucking deserve this. You deserve James O'Keefe, the narcissistic asshole who is going to use you and take your money and fuck you over just like he fucked over every single person at Project Veritas. This is why conservatives deserve to fucking lose. So, back to Hannah. I don't know that it was possible for her to turn it around given what James did, even with the best of intentions. I don't know anything about her fundraising ability, so I can't comment on that, but it does seem to me as though money is obviously a challenge in this scenario. Well, I can't get my message to Scott Adams because Scott Adams blocked me on Twitter for no apparent reason. So if you want to tell him about it, be my guest. But he blocked me on Twitter for no apparent reason, so I can't get it to him in any way. And I think it's a shame that more people couldn't see through the bullshit. I think it's a shame that more conservative influencers simped for James to peddle his smear campaign. I think it's a shame that people didn't use their brains to figure out what happened, because I figured out what happened based on publicly available information. When I first started talking about what was actually going on, I had a friend or two at Project Veritas, but I wasn't really talking to them about this because I didn't want to overstep the bounds of like a more congenial relationship, right? Like I didn't have inside information when I figured out what happened. I just used publicly available information and I figured it out. And then I watched conservative influencer after conservative influencer just lie. They all lied. Tim Pool lied. Steve Bannon lied. Jack Posobiec lied. They all lied. Either because they were too lazy. Dinesh D'Souza lied. Either because they were too lazy to figure it out, or they didn't care because James O'Keefe was their friend and they just wanted to simp for their friend. And in the process, every single person who was working at this company got thrown under the bus. Again, Mr. Reagan is one of the few people that told the truth. He told the truth. You can go back and watch his videos. He knew what was going on. Viva Frey lied. Robert Burns lied. They all fucking lied. This wasn't hard to figure out. And so conservative influencers have destroyed a good company that was doing good work, that had a whole team of people that were focused and dedicated to exposing things they all claim to care about, all to simp for James O'Keefe. Is Project Veritas going to recover from this? I don't know. If you had asked me a couple months ago if they would be okay, I would have said, I think so. I wasn't sure, but I thought they would be okay. I don't know if they're going to be okay now. Because they fired so many good people. And they fired them in a way that those people feel really, really, really disrespected. And so it's not that I don't want Project Veritas to be successful. I do want Project Veritas to be successful. But I don't know if you can. I don't know if you can come back from this. I really don't know. They fired some of their best journalists. They fired, they like, I mean, I just, and if Hannah's not bringing in money, but she's fired everyone, I don't know where you go from there. And I think it's just really sad. Rottweiler said, of the irony of many conservatives needing a secular messiah as much as the woke left and criticizing others for the very same thing. Oh God, it is ironic, isn't it, Rottweiler? It is. So I hope people are happy. I hope conservatives are happy. I hope they feel proud of themselves. You know, there's been a lot of infighting in the libertarian space for basically all year. And this is related back to what's going on. I'm going to do a little roundabout. And I tried to exist in that world so badly. And I still consider myself to be a libertarian, and I'm still a member of the Libertarian National Party. I'm still a member of the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire for the moment. And I will always consider myself to be a libertarian. That hasn't changed. But the infighting and bullshit and just people trying to destroy each other constantly, I opted out at the beginning of the year. I opted out and I said, bro, you were never a fan of mine. Don't fucking front. You are not smart enough to be in my audience. Goodbye. God. When people celebrate when good things are destroyed, if you celebrate when something good is destroyed, something beneficial and helpful, you will get blocked on this channel because fuck you. You don't belong here. Because I don't want to see that shit. So I was over the libertarian infighting a long time ago, and I opted out, and I just started focusing on my own thing. And I still kind of kept an eye on it, and I was like, maybe they'll get their shit together. Who knows? Maybe they'll get it together. And it's just gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. And then last night, for those who know what's going on, last night, basically, like, stick a fork in these people. They're fucking done. I don't even know what to say with what I heard last night in the Twitter space with Dave Smith and Jeremy Kaufman and Maj Touré and Reed Coverdale. That was a whole nother level. Anyway, I say that because for all the shit show that's going on in the libertarian spaces that basically drove me away because I don't want to be involved in nonsense, exactly the same thing happens with the conservatives. Conservatives made it sport to try to destroy Project Veritas, to simp for James O'Keefe, to feed James O'Keefe's narcissism. And it's fucking gross. It's gross. It is disgusting when you celebrate the downfall of an organization and of people that are legitimately trying to do good work. And when you celebrate the downfall of one person, you don't deserve help from anyone. You don't deserve it. Why would you celebrate the downfall of people who were on your fucking team? I don't know if it would have been reasonable to expect Hannah to turn everything around at Project Veritas within a couple of months because of the massive shit show that conservative media and conservative influencers created for them because of the smear campaign that was spread by James O'Keefe and covered by them as though it was the truth from God. I don't know if it's reasonable to expect anyone to be able to turn that around. I'm not saying that she's perfect or anything. I don't know that she did behave perfectly. I don't know what's going on with this American Phoenix thing. I don't know what's going on with that Ben guy. I don't know anything about that because I haven't had a chance to look into it. If someone from Project Veritas wants to send me a detailed explanation, you guys know how to reach me. My DMs are open. I don't know if Hannah sucked at fundraising. I have no idea. What I do know is that a lot of people, a lot of really good people and really good journalists have lost their jobs this week, and conservatives are celebrating, and it's fucking gross. And it just shows you that they never appreciated what these people did in the first place. You know, I went on that LawTube assholes. I don't even remember what the hell was his name. What was that lawyer's channel that I was on? This is the truth. I don't even remember his name. He was so insignificant to me. I don't even remember his name. What was the name? Someone knows the name of that lawyer assholes channel I was on? Yes, Joe. What is his name? What's his channel name? Good Logic. Thank you. Thank you. Again, I truly didn't remember. I've blocked it out like a bad memory. So I was on Good Logic's channel when all this shit show started. And do you know what he said to me? He said, anyone can replace Project Veritas employees. Anyone can replace them. Anyone can replace them. They just sign up for a Tinder account and that's all it takes. And I said at the time, and I wasn't actually talking to Project Veritas investigative journalists at that time, but I said to Joe at the time, I was like, I don't think that's right. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't think that Project Veritas journalists are easily replaceable because it's a highly specialized skill set. And so after I did that, wouldn't you know it, I started hearing from Project Veritas undercover journalists. And you know what I found out? Is that no, it is not as simple as setting up a Tinder profile. They have to maintain cover for months. There are some stories that Project Veritas journalists will be undercover for 8 fucking months. To get those clips, to get that video that you guys see on Twitter, takes 8 months of undercover journalism and work. Now, they don't all take that long, but some of them do. And to shit on that and to say, well, these guys are just easily replaceable. How many people in this chat would want to go undercover for 8 months to work on a single story? 2/3 of a year to work on one story. That's what's required to do some of the the really big stories that they've done. They are undercover for months. They have to build relationships with these sources. They have to get these sources to trust them. This is not just you create a Tinder profile, you go out on a date with someone, and they spill their guts to you. This is weeks or months of work to get a single effing story. That's not easily replaceable. You have to have people who understand psychology on a deep level. You have to have people that are willing to dedicate themselves to this to the detriment, probably, of their personal lives. And you're telling me that you can just find anyone off the street to do it? I call bullshit. But that's the story that's been peddled by conservative influencers. Oh, these journalists, they just don't do anything. They set up a Tinder profile and that's all that they do. And they go out on it basically takes one date. And that's all. They just go out on a date and they have some drinks and that's all they really do. No, that's not all they really do. And now you've just destroyed an organization that has cultivated a stable of these people that most of them just got fucking fired. It is fucking maddening to watch conservatives do this over and over and over again. And they did it to feed the ego of a narcissist who doesn't do any journalism. James O'Keefe does not do any journalism. He is just an actor. He's a front man. That is all it is. And I don't know why they can't see this. James O'Keefe, in his media company, is never going to produce the type of journalism that Project Veritas would have produced because he doesn't have the people to do it. He doesn't have the people to do it. If you look at the stories that James is getting, he's getting lower level throwaway stories that he's putting a pretty bow on and making them seem like they are a bigger deal than they are. Because he knows how to package things and he knows how to put on a show. And that's all he fucking does. What's happened at Project Veritas is a sad thing. And it was completely preventable if people had just cared about the truth. I don't know if they can rebuild after this. I don't know, because this is a big deal. Kaiwan says, I think you do better than James O'Keefe. Well, thank you, Kaiwan. I do appreciate that. But I want Project Veritas to be successful. I want the people that I still know that are still at Project Veritas to be successful. I want them to be able to do what they want to do. I want the employees, especially the journalists that got fired from Project Veritas, to be successful. I want them doing journalism. I wish there was a place they could go do it. Where are they going to go do journalism now, guys? There are some really good Christian Hartzog and James Lolino are good. And I'm saying their names because they're public. But I'm sure other good people have been fired too. Where are they going to go? Who's going to hire them? I don't know the answer to that. To be able to do what they were doing, I don't know the answer to that. Beth says, I don't know if you heard, but Crowder is doing undercover work as well. I mean, hopefully they go to Crowder. He always goes all in. I hope he breaks some important stories. I genuinely hope the journalists that just left Project Veritas go to Crowder. I think that'd be a good idea. Or start their own thing. Like, listen, there are a million ways to skin a cat. Like, they can be independent journalists. I hope that they do. Rottweiler, remember, they all push the narrative about all being disgruntled, entitled millennial employees with pronouns on their bios, not wanting to do their job, and Dim Fool pushed the narrative the most. That's exactly right. Every single conservative influencer that I saw talking about this pushed the narrative that the Project Veritas journalists were just entitled millennial employees that just didn't want to do anything. They all had pronouns in their bio, and nothing could be further from the effing truth. It's gross. And it's like times like this when I'm like, this entire space is dirty. It is so easy to be a grifter in the conservative space. Literally, all you need to do is tell them what they want to hear. That's it. Hey guys, we're winning. We're winning. We're winning. We're winning the culture war. Did you guys know we're winning the culture war here? Here's a video of black kids beating up white kids. We're not going to show you the one of white kids beating up black, but here's a video of black kids beating up white kids. Oh, have you guys seen this video of drag queens? And Jesus is coming to save us at any moment because we're winning. We're winning. We're winning. We're winning. We're winning. And the money will roll in. And if you go, Patriots, 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 come on, Patriots, show your voice, buy my hat, buy my t-shirt, the money will come rolling in. It's all you have to do to make money in the conservative space. That's it. That's the truth. If you speak their talking points and say what they want you to say, you will make so much money it will rain from the sky. But tell them the truth and they don't want to hear that, and they'll destroy you if you try to do it. It's fucking gross, is what it is. It's fucking gross. All right, guys, that's all I've got to say about that. I hope that enlightens some people about what's been going on. God, this sucks. This sucks so bad. Last thing I'll say is that, like I said, I've spoken to a lot of Project Veritas employees today, just like a DMs or phone calls or like whatever. But I will say, if any of you guys are watching, whether you're still there or whether you've left, if you want help, if you want to talk to someone confidentially, I'm an organizational psychologist first. I do this second, but I actually do care about the people who've been fired. I feel really bad for them. It's a really shitty situation to be in. So if you're a Project Veritas employee or you just got fired, first of all, I'm really sorry. I wish things had been different. You can always reach out if you want someone to talk to, if you want help, I've coached many, many, many people through this sort of thing in my industrial organizational psychology practice. So if anyone wants help, I am available. I will make myself available because what you guys did is really valuable and you didn't deserve to be treated this way. And I'm really sorry you were. I really am like, it sucks. I was like, I've been involved in layoffs like this. I've been involved in firings like this. I know how it impacts people. And I think that's like what pisses me off the most because these are people's real lives. These are people's real jobs. These are real people. Not celebrities. Not Twitterati. These are just real people who were trying to do the right thing and trying to do good work. And they are the ones that lost the most. So if any of you guys need any help or if there's anything I can do, let me know. Slide into my DMs on Twitter. Send me an email, whatever. Everything you guys tell me will be confidential. I won't release any of it unless I have your explicit permission to do so. But that's all I have for tonight, guys. I will be back at 5 p.m. tomorrow for happy hour. Take care. Have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you soon. Bye.